Thank you very much. My name is Busiso Xaba. I'm the National Chairperson of the PAC of Azania. Today we are being hosted by the NNLC Youth League. We are looking at the topic of how to effectively organize students. We got a guest that has come through, who's the president of PASMA, the Pan-Africanist student movement of Azania, which is the component structure of the PAC. The aim is to share the experiences and to go a little bit deeper. Before I hand over to our guest, who I will introduce in full in a few minutes, let me start with you, President of the NNLC Youth League, just to welcome us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, National Chairperson Aphelele Buku. I'm still audible enough, my lead.
You are loud and clear.
Yes, leadership. I'm not sure whether I'm still audible enough, my lead.
You are audible. Please proceed.
Yes, leadership. Aphelele, National Chairperson Aphelele, in our case today, the President of PASMA, for coming here to share information with us as my comrades. Welcome all my comrades in our discussion in the capacitating forum today. Mine is too short, comrade, National Chairperson and PAC at large. Ours is to thank you for trying your best to ensure that our cadres receive the right theory that will make them survive in the fight for freedom. It is the fact that what we learn must be practiced. The relationship between theory and the practical and practice goes hand in hand. Maybe to start with what we've been learning, comrades, for the past as the Youth League, when you were capacitating us, more especially the issue of campaigning and view of campaigns. We can say that we have led some campaigns. Some have been successful. Some have met challenges. From the government for student refunds, and in one of the tertiary institutions where our leaders were leading, and they were successful. It was the first time in history for having students actually rise and say you are demanding refunds of the money that we have not used when we were in lockdown, and the government lost millions and millions, and it was one of the campaigns that have also marketed us to the students of those institutions, and we've been seeing the students across the country and other institutions following, demanding the refunds that our comrades started, and it has been marketing us as our comrades. One of the campaigns that our leaders and our cadres have been waging, and also the issue of contesting power have been mentioned around the tertiary institution, because our target as the Youth League, it says that we targeted the tertiary institution because those comrades, we believe that they have been opened, their minds and their way of viewing things. They are in a certain level of understanding even the economy and the system and the oppressive system of the regime. And we've seen our comrades doing well in the elections around the institution and winning positions. Comrades, to say such, maybe a few of the challenges that we've been meeting is the issue of t-shirts. Our comrades, over 200 students across the tertiary institution. Since last year, we are mobilizing, they are joining without the t-shirts, and some of them have been, I would say, is the t-shirt for now. I would say they were still demanding the t-shirts because when these students wear the black t-shirt, us as Pan-Africanists, now we know that the students are then organized under the banner of Pan-Africanism, which will then, because Pan-Africanism must be a uniting force amongst the students to help us to achieve the African and socialist democracy, the Sifuna leadership. Maybe the issue we have been preaching the word of usually say this is our struggle, which means when you say this is our struggle, we are saying everyone must play a role in the liberation struggle. Nothing for us without us. That's where we are standing. We even preach the message that says to the students, that to our cadres that are leading students, we are saying go and represent the students, go and serve the interests of the student. This is the part of the 3S that we've been finding from you as the PhD, and we've been preaching it to our comrades that whenever you become a member of NNSC, you must know that you are going to serve, you are going to suffer, you are going to sacrifice. That's what we're going to make you as a comrade. And we've been seeing the comrades practicing that and doing very well, comrades. We are saying, comrades, thank you so much for providing this forum for us. And the topic of today, which says organizing students, the difference between the mobilized and organized student. As I have mentioned, that we have the challenges where we have in the institution, we have that some of the students are mobilized masses. The only challenge about a mobilized mass is that it is not ready to face the consequences of demanding, of fighting for freedom. It's just a struggle. It's a matter in a light way. Yet the life of a cadre is not easy at all. Leadership. Thank you so much, comrade. You can proceed.
Thank you very much, President. Basically, we have Comrade Aphelele Buku. He's the president of PASMA currently and member of the National Executive Council of the PAC. He has held various positions in PASMA and in society. He has led the branch, campus-based branch. He has also been a member of SRC in that campus or in that institution, and he was before he assumed the presidency, he was leading the Western Cape province of PASMA. Comrade Aphelele, over to you. Lead us on a topic. Just be free. Move as you feel, as you had prepared. Thank you. You are still muted, Comrade President.
Okay, Chairman, thank you very much for reminding me. Firstly, let me first apologize to cadres for connecting late. I was experiencing some connectivity issues. I believe, as the President was speaking around the issue of organizing and within higher institutions, which is something 25 years. Therefore, yeah, we can try and speak around that particular issue. But also, I think there's some sort of, I didn't hear the President correctly when he was unpacking the whole topic. So I would love that, Chairman, if you can just summarize and recap what the president has said. Then I will take it from you and then just also try to explain the topic in full.
Basically, in short, he was saying that they are grateful for the program that we have together, the work that the PC and NNLC is working on capacitation. Both theory, they've seen it practically work for them. So they are looking forward to today's discussion. As I indicated, that we are at your hands in terms of how you approach the topic. Over to you, President.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. Firstly, speak about the issue of organizing.
Please move around. It seems like
education.
You are in the best spot.
We must firstly be able to speak around the issue of wires that are there in the institutions of that particular sector. Am I not audible enough?
You are audible now. Yes, you are audible now.
As I was saying that, when you look at the issue of organizing students, particularly in higher education, I think someone needs to mute their mic. Okay, thank you. We're looking at an issue that needs, first and foremost, us as student activists to be able to discover as to what we are organizing towards to. We have always maintained that as the Pan-African Student Movement of Azania that we do not necessarily exist for occupying SRC positions, but we contest SRC positions for the sake of making sure that we secure the ballot in order for us to be able to push our ideology at a more advanced stage, because I think that you can't be able to push and organize students effectively when you are outside of the office of the SRC, because it is the most recognized structure. But the most important work that a student movement must first base its existence on is making sure that it builds its own cadres and have a strong base of cadres that is being capacitated to make sure that the cadres understand that what is the aim of the movement and what do we seek to achieve at the end of the day. Remember that all our organizations are not a means to an end, but they are a way towards the end. They are a way towards the end. Therefore, it must be clear that an organization must always have clear-cut aims and goals. For instance, we will say it as our motto is to mobilize and strive for socialist education. How do we do that? To do that, they are fully vested on the theory and on the aims and aspirations of the student movement, and also as aligned to the mother body, which is the PAC. Therefore, after we've done that, we are able to build a unit, and that unit becomes some sort of a cell, and that unit becomes the building block towards the branch. And after we've been able to form a strong unit in the branch, which is going to be the one that teaches the branch and make sure that the branch moves towards the right and progressive direction. That also translates and transcends to all members of the branch. Then the branch itself becomes a unit, and now the unit is no longer just a few capacitated cadres, but the branch itself becomes a more capacitated a unit of the student movement. Therefore, this now will be seen when we conduct SRC elections. We look at the results and you see what is the progress you have made throughout the year. But of course, to conduct SRC and the results of the SRC do not necessarily at all times reflect the work that you have been putting on the ground as cadres, but they do have some sort of a reflection of your work. But hence, the most important part is to make sure that you always build a branch that has capacitated comrades and a student movement that is based on ideology and rooted in ideology, and that knows what is its end goal. Therefore, I think around the issue of organizing students, then after we have been able to build these strong branches, 2015, 2016, fees must fall time in the country of South Africa, you will understand that what most students did, or what most student activists were able to do, was to be able to connect live wires. How do you connect live wires? You take the lived realities of students on campus-based issues, and then you are able to unpack them to make students see that their lived realities are just a microcosm of what happens in the bigger society. Therefore, our activism as student activists must not always be based solely on student issues, but it must have a whole societal outlook, so that we are able at all times to connect live wires. What do I mean by connecting live wires? Let's say, for instance, you look at the issue that is facing currently the South African students at large, the issue of an accommodation crisis. You do understand that as a student movement, that accommodation crisis only affects students of a particular class and students of a particular race, which is Black students. Therefore, we must be able to explain to them that the issue of an accommodation crisis that is facing students in universities is directly linked to the issue of landlessness as a factor that is facing African people. Hence, that Black students and African students at large will face an accommodation crisis because they are landless. Therefore, you are able to connect your struggle to the struggle of society as a whole. In this way, you will be able to organize them around one particular issue that affects all students, but it affects them in different ways and in different manners, because you will find that one African student in UCT does not have an accommodation crisis as per se institution, but that African student knows and faces loneliness on each and every basis, but will relate now the student from UWC who is facing an accommodation crisis, because now they've been able to elevate the consciousness of them, so that's what most of the time that I think when it comes around the issue of organizing students, you must be able to tackle, to be able to have a societal outlook, and also being able to connect those live wires that exist between all students of different campuses. Yeah, let me, for now, I think I can park here for now. Usually to Chairman.
Thank you very much for that opening. I think that the issue of live wires has already been raised by the president in the opening. A live wire was identified in terms of the refunds in Swaziland, Gwangwane. I do not know if there are questions, so that when we move to the next phase, when Comrade Aphelele comes back, he comes back from a firm position. Any questions? Please just come in. Let me ask a question then, while comrades are thinking of their questions, starting with the issue of identifying the problems of students. And PASMA, as you indicated, that it mobilizes students around their own problem. How do you go around that from your environment as PASMA?
Let me first get the question. You are asking, how do you go around mobilizing students with their issues that they are facing. Is that the question, Chairman?
Basically, the identification of the problems first. How do you go about identifying the key issue that you end up rallying the students around? Thank you.
So, basically, one of the things that I think we do best as a student movement, and I think that all student movements should be able to do, is to first know that students know their issues first and foremost. Before you, as a student movement, coming to them, you must know and you must be fully vested and you must have a full knowledge of student issues, because students, they know their issues because they are the people who experience those particular problems. Therefore, how do you go about in identifying the student issues? You must be able to have a solid and active membership as a student movement, and membership that is always within students, a membership that creates an elitist culture whereby it is distant from students and only comes to students to show as if they are supreme leaders or whatever. It must be a membership that is around with students, then as a membership that is on the level of students, but not on the level of students I consciously when it comes to but on their level when it comes to the ground and experiencing their problems, then you're going to be able to identify student issues because you are always amongst students and you are always there. For instance, as the Pan-African Student Movement of Azania, we have our own campaign that we call Access to Education Campaign. Access to Education Campaign, it is a campaign that we do at the beginning of each and every year. What do we do? We know that the institution will be closing in December. Students will get their marks. Some students will become academically excluded. Some students in the following year will be facing financial exclusions. They are BASA, another bursaries. And then what we do as when the academic year begins, as activists, we go back to our institution way before the academic year begins. On the same day that matric results get to be released in the country, all PASNA members are expected to be back on campus. To be back on campus as assisting students who did not apply for university due to many difficulties that African students face, assisting students who have a problem with their acceptance letters, assisting first-year students with all those problems. Immediately, the second phase, when the academic year is about, when registration starts to happen, all cadres are there. They assist all those who have been academically excluded in crafting their appeals, in doing everything. They assist all those who are facing financial exclusion. Then throughout that whole process, we get to interact with all students coming from different walks of life. Then the problems of students come to us. You become the first people who receive the problems of students before the problems of students become to be received by anyone else, the student movement. Then we are able to formulate our plan and we are able to be able to see that, okay, in this particular institution, there's this particular problem of students not being clear to register, a majority of students not being clear to register. And then we also meet on a daily basis with other leaders from other institutions and hear from their side as well. What is the most predominant issue that is happening now? Then you will see that we are facing some same issues. Then we are able to identify these problems because we have been on the round since the first day the institution started operating. Therefore, now all these problems that students are facing, they arrive on your door, on your doorstep. Therefore, that's how you must be able to identify student issues consistently on the ground and being consistently among the masses of our people. Yeah, is it? Yes, I think I might have tried to cover
if I may, Yes, if I may re-emphasize.
Are you still in the meeting?
We could hear you. We are clear, President. Just to summarize what you said, what is very critical. One is to have your members scanning the environment, being part of the community, to actively listen, which you emphasize the listening and the feeling of the students. Secondly, is to make sure that you don't have an elitist culture among your members, as much as they gather alone from time to time, but they must spread around. I like particularly the seasonal campaigns, the campaigns that are seasonal, that every season, like the beginning of the academic year, you have a campaign of opening access to education campaign, which has I could hear more than one issue there, financial exclusion being one, academic inclusion being the other. I'm hoping that comrades will come in to ask more questions. However, I will proceed to ask mine, as I don't see any hands and I don't see anyone opening their mic. You talked earlier about students as transitioning component of society, that you need to link the discussions of campus issues and link it to national issues. You made an example about land. Is there other issues that are more local? Because that one would be a national issue that you are using as PASMA as an example to tie to the campaign that you are busy with. While you are thinking about that question, over to you, Comrade. Your hand is up. Go ahead, President.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I don't know in your leadership.
You are loud and clear.
Yes, thank you to the President for the introduction they've been placing here. My question is to understand that kune party la ibekile comrade that my comrades must have the society, the outlook of the society. I have a point here, leadership, because maybe it's the terrain and the society, the Swaziland and South Africa is totally different. The way I think our government treats us as a student is totally different. Then you are a democratic, you call yourself you are a democratic country. We are not a democratic country. We are being led like a family in our society. Then, in the view of the look of the society, I have a question, Corporate President, is that how do you hold the student issues? Because how can you give us, because we believe leadership.
You muted yourself for a second, but you are back. Over to you. Continue.
Yes, my question was to Comrade President. In the society, our society is against, because we are viewing now the society. The Minister of Finance and the peers of the education have issued a statement, even the government themselves, and say that education is a right, education is a right, but the scholarship is a privilege. Then that's the challenge now. We are saying, how can you say, and to the entire nation, they were saying, the government issued a statement saying, students must know that it is a privilege to get a loan to a scholarship to learn where you are learning. And it's another challenge that which means now a student leading protests and whatever, the scholarship, the government have a right then akumukele scholarship. Leadership, I want the view of the president of PASMA. What advice can he give to our comrades about the kind of a society that's belonging within a comrades in leadership? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it's a critical question. If I can summarize the questions. The question was, the first question that I asked was about how do you, and another example of linking community and student struggles. Then the second question, which was tied to that one, was that how do you handle the situation of a democratic country, which is South Africa, and an undemocratic country, which is Eswatini? How do you compare that two, and how do you handle it? Because in Eswatini, they just decide to take away the loan or the bursary if you are leading the struggles on campus and on the streets. Over to you, President.
Thank you, Chairman. I will first try to tackle the last question, which is a very big, complex one, because it is a question based on lived reality, and a question based that one must try to tackle from a theoretical view from a point of lived reality. For instance, this question for me, I think, becomes part of trying to communicate or to connect live wires, because if you look at the struggle of Eswatini that was currently ongoing, which is the struggle to overthrow the monarchy and have a leadership that a democratic country whereby everyone will have their own right. First and foremost, I will try and come to from this particular
If you can move a little bit, President, we are losing you. The connection of the network is giving us quite a hard time. While the president is still coming through, gonna try to rejoin. I must just indicate that the democratic, I like the way that when you said it first, when you said that there is a say that South Africa or Azania is a democratic country. If we look at the classic of democracy, we will not fall under that. Yes, we have elections, but definitely we cannot be seen as democratic, free, or independent. Those words don't come. Yes, an individual is very free, but as a nation, we are not a free nation, or we are not an independent nation either, because of many factors that we can raise, including how elections are being determined by finances of foreigners and finances of minority sectors who also control the media that end up shaping what is the outcomes of elections. So that qualification of democracy. Attempting to answer the question, in South Africa, what you are saying, it's exactly what's happening as well. In the early 90s, let me say in the late 90s, 2000, government security agencies invested a lot of money to kill not only PASMA, but to kill all the student organizations, because partly because PASMA was influencing them to take a totally different direction than what their mother bodies were saying. So we were winning a generation, including to their organized organizations. Hence, you see later the emergence of organizations like the EFF that sounds like the PAC, but they're coming from the other side, basically their leadership. They were expelled because they became PAC voice carriers within their organization. Their organization quickly identified, because PASMA and PASO, then its predecessor on campus, were effective. So it's not new that government used security forces against student movements. If you can hear across the world, it's not true that they use to threaten your continuation of education. They also threaten your career post finishing school, that you will have the degree, but you will not be employed anywhere. So those are the tricks that are used to demoralize and deactivate the organizations. What should the organization do? All these things depend on strength. The more we gather strength, the more they are aware that we can make their lives very uncomfortable. The more they think about getting to us in that manner. So it's just continue to pursue our organization and our spread. It's very important that an organization become an organization. It does not become an individual who's too visible, because once they see that, they just chop the head of that individual. But if you got sufficient comrades who are emerging in different directions, and there's a systematic way of building various layers, even when security forces do an analysis, they realize that they will have to arrest the whole campus in order to kill the organization, rather than arresting the individual. So the best security is what we are doing now. We capacitate each other so that there are many people who are competent, therefore reduces or mitigate the risk of an individual. That's an approach that becomes critical. However, President was still explaining in a little bit of depth. Over to you, President.
Thank you again, Chess. Let me first again apologize for this issue of breaking off and on. experiencing now currently network connectivity problems here. But please bear with me, cadres and comrades. As chairman has said correctly, so that in order for student activists to protect themselves, you must have a big mass and you must have a lot of capacity on the ground. When you attack student issues, it must not be seen as a thing that is being done by this particular student movement. It must be seen as a response of campus-based students. It must be seen as if students who are leading the mass and not individuals. And then when individuals are capacitated enough,
thank you. And Comrade Aphelele is in the city in Cape Town. You will know now that Eswatini is not the only one that has has network challenges. After all, it's the same companies that run these mobile networks. The issue that I was going to ask, if it comes back, it's how does PASMA handle allies, as indicated that we are in elections now on campus, and there are various, we get some position, we don't get some positions. How do we work with people of other organizations? How do we make sure that our voice is loud? I would really like to hear him around that issue, because it becomes a big issue. And I will, when it's back, I would like to know, how does NNLC also contest campuses in South Africa? As I indicated, that the advantage of that has many other advantages in terms of organizing the Swaziland diaspora, and also, of course, there are other which I will not mention now, but I've mentioned them outside. I'm sure that comrades will ask if PASMA can assist with that progression to those campuses. I suspect that we're going to have a difficulty to move any further. I just wanted to touch, if there are no other questions, comrades, feel free. I wanted to touch on some of the issues that, as a former student leader myself, that I find them working. I think the president has talked very firmly about understanding the problems of the students. You remember we say that we are not fighting for issues that are in people's heads, but we are fighting for the practical problems that people have on the ground. That he has explained well. I think the issue of regalia, it's already obvious. One of the tricks that we used on regalia is that when we received the regalia, we were quite deliberate. We did not only give to our members, but we identified those that are popular, or those that have characteristics that make them a magnet, and give them those t-shirts, even if they have not associated with us. Part of what was important for us was that someone must wear a t-shirt and be insulted while wearing it. Then you get commitment out of that. So you will find us, sorry guys, most of the time you are not so influential to yourselves. So most of the time we use ladies' residents more than the guys' residents in terms of our mobilization. ladies are more communal in their approach. They talk a lot, they share more than we share as the male species. So we find that when you have won the love and attachment of lady residents, the guys' residents become an automatic issue. And also, ladies are more into, like I said, into communal, better organization, touching each other. So when they are being attacked for appearing on those T-shirts, it makes them much more loyal and committed to the brand and to the struggle. That is from now more a marketing point of view. Please find those influencers and make sure that you don't have to convince themselves to be with you. Just make sure that they are associated with the brand. That goes a long way in mobilization. And then when they're inside, you work on organizing them into being cadres in various manner. The other issue that we used quite effectively is to identify beyond identifying the problems that are broader, is to identify people with personal problems that we can solve on our own. For example, you find that the person is a student but does not have immediate accommodation. Of course, the accommodation that you have needs a little bit of comfort, but for a few days, as President was saying, basically PASMA comrades house most of the first year students for the first week or two to make sure that as they look for accommodation, especially those who did not get accommodation on campus officially, that they need to look for accommodation elsewhere around. That kind of students will hardly forget you as a person and as you as an organization. But it's important to make sure that it is seen that is an organizational arrangement rather than a personal arrangement, so that you don't get into a trap. In doing that, it's very, very important that we stay ethical. You don't want, for example, first years to be accommodated, girls to be accommodated by guys who treat them as their girlfriends, when the only boyfriend relationship is created by desperation. So being ethical becomes very important, because it's convenient to do that when the person arrives. But when he has stayed, he will never forget that abuse, and he will not see it as being assisted as they saw it when they were desperate. They will see it as what it is, that it was someone took an opportunity to abuse them or to rape them, to be just straightforward. Let's be cautious of those ethical issues. Everything that we do, from time to time in the access to education, we find other comrades being naughty, which we discipline and make sure that the students are aware. As PASMA, more than as the PC. I'm still a member of PASMA, by the way, because I'm studying. So I that's why I keep on saying we, talking on behalf of the student movement. So we find comrades using the access to education to start charging students. For us, that becomes an unethical issue, and we deal with it as is, and we make sure that the public is aware of what steps have we done if we find someone doing such. It's ethics becomes critical in organizing, both in the student community and elsewhere. In terms of linking the issues, I think that we must not take the hard issues as we link the student issues. Let's take things that they can reach, but let's take things that associate with our party that it normally says, but not the hardest. We take the ones that are just visible and are palatable. Because as you have indicated, once we become too radical in a situation where we're not ready, then the system crashes with ease. I do not know if there's any other comment that we want to make as I go to the last question that President is having a difficulty. Let me deal with the issue that I wanted the president to touch. How do you deal with allies? Now you have won 2 seats out of 8. How do you handle? As we always say, politics is about power. No matter what position you hold, if that position cannot wield power for the benefit of your constituency, you have a problem. Then it becomes important that you always have the bad cop, good cop scenario, where you got a pool of cadres who can be able to approach various organizations and be accepted in that environment. Of course, you have to have the harsh ones as well that deal with those who become harsh to us. Because as much as you need allies, the other people need allies as well. And their allies, their potential allies who misbehave. So you send the team that will break the relationships. When you have the other team that's soft, you send your diplomats to do the work. So it's important to develop, when there are no elections in time, people who can access other organizations with ease. It's very important to know what is negotiable and non-negotiable to you. So as you engage with potential partners to run for office for that year, that becomes important, that you don't sacrifice your non-negotiables. And you are clear about what you can negotiate. You don't become very firm to everything. You allow the other team to have its wins as well, as much as you have your win. However, if you have sold out on your non-negotiable, the chance is that you will find yourself quite cornered in the coming elections, where the constituency will not trust you, because on your manifesto you said you're going to do this, but on the table of power you decided not to do it. So your promises, you must be systematic and careful how you promise as you build up to elections. And after elections, how do you negotiate that those promises are met in whatever alliance you have? It's okay not to be in charge in other manner. The other guys become visibly in charge. It's a short time, a year, for an organization. We will recover and get the power if we keep on pushing for the demands or what we've put in our manifesto as we're building up to elections, as we are building up in the campaigns that we run outside SRC. There must be a governance and structure that is strong outside the SRC, even if you won the whole SRC, because there are temptations that comes that you must defend against. Management has a habit of buying student representatives in various manners. Be careful of those nice luxury lives that comes with access to management of the institution and management of campuses. Later, when we're strong enough, access to the departments outside the institution. Lastly, I must say that you have heard that I've been really trying to persuade you as NNLC and you as NNLC Youth League that do not form a student structure. Let NNLC Youth League run that structure. Run that. So you've started contacting universities. Please don't make a mistake of not getting to high schools and primary schools. NNLC as a party cannot be seen organizing in primary schools, but the Youth League must organize and ensure that there is institution of representation of pupils in primary school. That allows the proper feed of the NNLC Youth League as people mature, as they grow up. They know the party, they have identified with the party, they have strengthened themselves in the ideals of the party. So the institutions of higher learning, it's important, it's a start, and it's a core of the leadership of the Youth League going forward. But let's go to high schools first, make sure that we start cementing ourselves in high school. If there is no SRCs in high school, we make sure that that's a first call that happens. I think we've already seen the spark of a revolution in high school. Boarding schools are very useful entry because they schools are their parents nearby, they just approach the parents and disorganize you. However, boarding schools work well to start the whole movement until it's cemented. The day schools become easy to follow the boarding schools trends afterwards. Then the idea is so cemented that it cannot be stopped. So I'm hoping that to see the branches of NNLC Youth Leagues in high schools across the country, which you have an advantage because with the association of the right educators that you already have in your fold, they can be mentored in a better way. Let me stop there for today and allow any question or ask Comrade Mafafa to then prepare himself to close for us. There are no questions. Comrade Mafafa, over to you in summing up.
Asibonge leadership sibonge for the presentation. Nomage ibese iba nema challenges network lapha nalapha where our guest ibese nayo siyakhatheka. We are looking forward that we are going to continue with this discussion and hoping that this issue of network will be sorted. We have been experiencing the same challenge in Swaziland, where our network is being shut down when the government prepares itself to massacre and kill innocent Swazis for several times. We have a challenge of MTN. MTN is one of the largest companies that is helping and supporting the state to kill innocent Swazis. It's one of the challenges that we are facing in Swaziland. Comrade National Chairperson, we as the students in Swaziland, we are looking forward for creating a relationship with PASMA. And since we do not have so far a student movement, we are just cadres. We are organizing in one of the union for students. Manigashu would say my union would say some babesa by dominator, best batting up when this union belongs to student We have been seeing this so far. There was a SNAS, and this so far the EFF Student Command have created the EFF Swaziland have created a student command, which means now the student movement for those political parties where the students are being organized so far. When we engage in the leadership and organizing students, our mandate and our call as the Youth League of the Ngwane National Liberation Congress is simply that we want to organize, educate, and lead the students in their struggles. Istruggles zama-students siyafanana ne-struggles zama-workers. I-struggles zama-workers is-struggles ukuthi the people must have a say on their land, and but the land must all be owned by the people. Hayi lolo kwentekalana where the state own everything in leadership. By so saying, my leader, thank you so much. Nakumaqabane onke la Aphelele lana ukuthi abe khona kulezo school. Kungaba kufisela nje amaqabane onke lo lalana lokuthi abe nebusuku obuhle. Siyabonga.